Welcome to Key Conversations, where you get to connect with the best of the music business, unlocking the secrets to exploding your music career, presented by In the Key of Success. I'm your host, Cheryl B. Engelhardt. The conversations you're about to hear are between our special guest and participants of my MX4 course, the Marketing and Branding, Money-Making, Mentorship Mastermind for Musicians. They are singers, songwriters, composers, producers, and artists just like you, asking their burning questions of our experts while transforming their careers over 6 weeks. If you think this could be you, check out mx4course.com to schedule a free half-hour coaching call with me to see if we'd be a good fit. So, let's get started. So we've got today Joey Auch, producer, songwriter, composer, and performance coach extraordinaire. And on this call, we've got members from the MX4 course, which is a 6-week course on boosting your marketing and your, it's a big mastermind course, which is awesome. And we've got Megan on the phone and Lauren here, and they're representing songwriters and performers and touring artists across the country with their awesome questions that they've prepared. So I'm first just going to introduce Joey. Joey and I go back really, really, really long time, like longer than I care to admit. And we met in a songwriting circle, actually, that Tina Schaefer, who hosted last week's interview. She hosts the Songwriter Circle and this competition, and we were both finalists. And we just hit it off, and we've written some songs. We have a couple duets, one of which is on my last record. We've written a couple songs that have been placed in some films. And I know him as a co-writer, colleague of mine, but he also produces artists and does a lot of amazing mixing things and commercials. He's got a lot of national commercials under his belt. If you've watched TV ever, you've heard his music. And he's up to a ton of things, just sort of like a lot of the successful people I know in the music industry right now. We wear a lot of hats, and Joey is no exception. So that's sort of my intro of Joey. He's awesome. And I just wanted to say, Joey, first of all, thanks for being here. I know you're super busy. You've got a baby on the way. But I just wanted to see sort of, fill in the holes for me. Like, what's your story? How did you get to where you are? Give us like a couple minute spiel on what you love doing right now. What's your favorite sort of work that you're doing as a full-time music maker person?
Okay. Well, where did I come from? I was a touring artist for about 10, 15 years. I'm actually originally from upstate New York. And when I met Cheryl, I had just moved to New York City. In fact, like the first week that I moved to New York City, and we both were finalists in that contest. And prior to moving to New York, I had just the end of my second record deal. Like, it was an indie deal in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I moved to New York, and prior to that point, I had just been doing music and supporting myself from touring. And most of it was self-booked. At the end of it, I did have agents and stuff like that. But I was definitely part of that beat the streets and go out and do it scene, and writing my own songs and really focused on the artist side of things. When I came to New York, I did the circle thing and then got into songwriting. And at the same time, I signed with a manager who booked vocalists for commercials, singing commercial demos. And it was so expensive when I moved to New York that I had to get a day job. So I picked up a day job, just worked a 9 to 5. And I just kept doing these auditions for different commercials and stuff until I finally got some. And in the contacts that I met through that, I tried to get work actually composing for them and building my skills as a producer and learning how to do everything. And through the course of that, I met more people and I kept writing. And I really didn't want to stay in the commercial thing. I really wanted to keep making records. But I didn't want to go back out on the road, so I had just enough of a group of people that I was working with that I just kept parlaying it into more things, and it kind of snowballed. And I really love producing, and that's kind of what I do now. It's sort of perfect little world. I have my own studio, and I bring people in, and I know what it's like being out there and paying the money to go into a big studio and feeling that pressure, and you're in front of the mic, you got to come up with you want it to sound the way you want it to sound, but you don't know exactly how to get it there. And I try to take an approach from all the things that I've learned that kind of takes the pressure off and also gives you a springboard towards your sound and explains things in language that I feel like artists, as fellow artists, we all understand, as opposed to some guy who presses buttons and who hits record, you know? So that's kind of where I'm at.
Very cool. Awesome. Thanks, Joey. So on this call, we've got Lauren, and Lauren is not only a singer-songwriter, she's also, she's a singer, like super trained singer, and she's also really good at bookings and playing around with the idea of starting her own touring company, which is something that, you know, indie artists everywhere are, most of them that I know hate booking or are terrible at it and don't know how to have those conversations. And Lauren sort of found a niche and like, oh, I'm good at this. So that's kind of cool. And then Megan, who's on the phone, is also a songwriter and a teacher. And she is performing as well and getting out there a little bit more and forming a band right now and sort of figuring out what that sound is also. So I'm just going to open up the floor to you guys. I know I sent you all Joey's links. Joey Auch songs.com is Joey's production page and main page there. He also is the co-founder of a music production and record producing.
Kind of a pseudo.
Yeah, a little pseudo 360 label called Bloom. And that's bloommusic.nyc. So you guys, I know, prepped a little bit. So Megan or Lauren, let me hear from you guys if you have any questions for Joey, who's sort of in it and have seen kind of all sides of this making music world.
Well, I had a question because I'm kind of like Cheryl said, I'm like in the process of kind of transitioning from doing so much touring into like, you know, kind of focusing a little bit more on the business side for a little while. For you, when you were kind of like, what do you think was like the biggest challenge in making that transition for you? Because I mean, there's tons of different things that I'm like, wow, I never even thought this would be an issue.
Right. You know, I had a couple of benchmarks, and I was fortunate kind of because, you know, I was doing a lot of things, and one of the things I did was a commercial for McDonald's that was super, super successful, and it got like, I got in Rolling Stone and all this TV stuff, and myself and my co-writer of that, we decided to parlay that into our own company. And from the proceeds from that gig, I had kind of had in my head, if I could make at least as much as I make at my day job playing music, then I would just go back to it, you know? And mind you, there's only been kind of like this, it was a 2-year stretch. My wife was in grad school, so I was kind of paying the bills during that time. But prior to that, I also was a tour musician like you and just playing. I think the key thing is really to kind of say, what's my, you know, my monthly, what do I got to hit as far as my finances go? And also figure out, you know, you have to find those other avenues. For you, you're a singer, you said, and you're booking people. Is that the other thing to do? I mean, that's the booking thing, I think, is huge because, you know, I've done several different tours, and even though we booked the majority of our shows, there was always supplemental agents that we had in different regions, different cities. It's just inevitable because you want to pick up days when you couldn't get a date, or, you know, it's nice to have somebody in the area or on the ground to actually make sure that there's posters at the show and make sure that your name is spelled correctly on the website and that it's up in advance and people know how to see you and find you. And I think that that's really, you know, when she said that, I think it's a really marketable thing with those connections that you have. And you already have the credibility too as an artist. They're probably going to be like, those club owners and that are going to go, oh, she's quality artist, so she's going to know what is good, you know?
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of like what it's been. Like, I've got a couple of venues that are like willing to, like, once I kind of get all the way in, like, to give me a couple dates, like, regularly, like maybe like a monthly showcase or a quarterly thing. And then I would just probably just book the tour around like whatever those days are for different artists that like maybe don't have, you know, at like any clue, like literally have never been anywhere before and are just like really good and just want to get out there. Like I would do something like that for them. And then on the other hand, kind of do more customized tours for artists that kind of already have fan bases in certain cities and like kind of know like where they want to venture to, like if they want to go someplace new or stuff like that. So,
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah. And it's a good like time thing because you're doing your own music as well. You can sort of build it into what you want to do, and it's not like you have to do that every single day 9 to 5 for the next 10 months. But you can do a tour, and then you can, when they're on tour, you can sort of do your own thing and get some singing gigs and do all that. So yeah, it's like a juggling game. At some point, some balls in the air, and you're really focusing on the other two. I juggle with 3 balls. Joey, I think you juggle with like 6 balls. But I think that that's a really good point. Sort of focus on the different avenues that. It's like putting the structures in place, the calendars and the accountability and the plans, so that you can take on a lot of different things because all the successful people that we know in this industry are doing a lot of different things. So how do you manage that? So. Did that sort of answer your question, Lauren?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Megan, I know you're on the phone. Did you have any questions for Joey?
Hi. Yeah. I do have a question. Right now I'm working with a producer on a song that I've written, but he's doing a lot of the instrumentation. And he's my voice teacher, so we've been just basically working out of his studio. And so I need to at some point have a conversation with him as far as what he wants me to do, whether he's going to sign a work for hire or whether he wants a percentage once I go to sell the song or market it. So I wanted to kind of get an idea from you of what you think is fair. Right now, what I've been paying him is basically what I pay him for my voice lessons. So I kind of, before I negotiate with him, I kind of want to get an idea of what's reasonable.
It's a great question. Yeah, that's totally something that all artists deal with. Like, how do you pay the people that are creating the music with you? Are they co-writing? There's like super fine lines. Joey's like the pro at this.
Well, I will tell you this, as a person who does this every day, everybody that I work with, it's pretty much from the beginning we set out what the arrangement's gonna be.
Right.
Are you guys kind of like halfway through the song? Are you done, or where are you at with the process?
Well, we have to put the bass line in and some more vocals, and then we're done. And then,
Gotcha.
the mixing and the mastering too. So that's where we are. So probably 3/4 of the way done. And I know ideally I should have had that conversation with him before we started, but
Right.
because I'm his voice student,
Yeah.
it kind of like never happened. And as it's coming along and it just gets better and better, I'm like, wow, this song is so good. I have to do something with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're doing that regardless. I have a question though. So may I ask how much are you paying him for the voice lessons? Like, you paying him hourly, or how does it?
Yeah, I pay him hourly. I pay him $40 an hour.
Okay. So how many hours have you put in on it?
Probably. Well, I have voice lessons once a week, and we started in January. So I would say there's about 13 or 14 hours in it.
Okay. Well, I think it just depends. I mean, I do different arrangements with different people. My hourly rate is higher than that,
Right.
but I would say, since you're actually, also he's not in New York City. Where are you at?
Outside of Philadelphia, he's in Deptford. So
Okay.
It's about 40 minutes from Philly, south
And
of
you're
Philly.
home studio there, I assume?
It's not really, I wouldn't know, it's not a home studio. It's at a rehearsal space, and it's actually, it's its own business.
I see. Okay, so he's kind of got an actually dedicated studio.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the reason I ask is because when I try to assess what I think will probably be fair, I think about what his expenses and costs are to do what he does,
Right.
So, because as a producer, sometimes I'll just produce and work with a different engineer in an outside studio. And when we do that, we have to pay for the studio time on top of my fee,
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
in your case, you're kind of getting both at the same time. When I do stuff in my home studio, of course, I don't charge an additional fee for the studio time because that comes with it.
Okay.
But I would say, if you're going to put in, I can't imagine to do the full song and he's going to mix it too.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I wouldn't say he'd probably be doing it for less than, I don't know, $1,500 probably.
Okay.
And, it's hard for me to say because I as a producer, take a percentage of the master.
Okay.
If the fee, like, it just depends. I mean, has he ever done any other artists? Has he got any recognition at all, or what's his?
Yes, he actually, his wife does trials, and she does a lot of Christian music.
Okay.
And he's now working with Frankie Negron.
All right.
Yeah, so that gives you an idea of the level where he is. Yeah.
I see. Well, I think what I would do is, you got probably like $800 into it, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think the artist side of me would say, I put in $800, and at this point, say, how much more will it take for me to buy it? I think it's always in your best interest to own that master recording.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think you should ask him. It sounds like you guys have a good relationship, and he's doing a great job. I think you should talk to him about it. I don't think it's a bad thing for him to maintain a little percentage on the master.
Yeah, I was just gonna do a quick
I'll give you a quick. Unless Cheryl,
No, you go for it. I'll supplement if you need to, but go for it. This always gets.
What I do is a production agreement where, like, if I do a discounted upfront rate, I would do a production agreement where I would say, I want to make $4,000 for this recording, right?
Okay.
So if you did $800 of that, I would say until you license the track or you sell downloads of it, I would take 50% of that until we reach $4,000, or 25%, whatever you work out with him. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean it has to be forever and on every cent that you make for the rest of your life.
Right.
But what I would do is start talking about it and saying, how much would you want for me to own the master? And point out, already put in $800. I would keep that in mind and say, less what I paid you, and see what he says. And if he's like, it sounds like he's cool, he's not going to come up with something ridiculous, and he already knows probably who he's dealing with in your budget. You've worked with him for a while, I assume, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I would just approach it that way. Because everybody's different, and for me to say like an exact fee, it's hard to say.
Okay.
But it sounds like he'd probably work with you, and I would just think about it that way. And if he's coming up with a fee that's too high for you, I would approach it like that and say, well, look, can we work out some sort of back-end arrangement so that, if I'm successful with the song, you're going to get half the money until you get to your point. But at least then you're still being able to take income from it as well.
Okay.
Let me just throw this out there for everyone. There are several different ways to make money on your song, and Joey just mentioned a couple of them. You can license a song. So if your song gets placed in a TV show, oftentimes you'll get an upfront fee. That's the master fee. That goes to the people that own the master of the recording. And as an artist, I always encourage artists to retain the master 100%, which goes a little against what Joey's doing. But what Joey's presenting is that if you can't pay upfront for a buyout or a work for hire, this is a good way to do that. Then when you license a song, you also get a sync license fee, and that gets paid to the writers and the publishers. It gets split 50-50 to the writers and the publishers, and that gets paid through your performing rights organization, ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. So there's the back end that you get, and that's usually not right away. That's usually like 9 months or so after whatever it is airs. It depends on how long the network takes to get the cue sheets into ASCAP and BMI. So right there, just in a license alone, there's two different ways to get paid. You can also get paid when you sell your CD on iTunes, downloads. That money goes to the master owners. That has nothing to do with ASCAP or BMI or CSAC. Joey, please hop in here and correct me if I say something wrong or stupid. So the master owner there is the person that also gets the money from those downloads, not the singer, not the performer, unless the performer is the singer, not necessarily the writer. A lot of times, I know there's you listen to the radio, so many times the performers are not getting paid. So if you're the only writer on the song, either you're the writer, the performer, and you own the whole master, you're getting all of the money. If you make a deal with a producer because the producer says, hey, I'm normally $4,000 to produce one song, and you're like, I can't pay that. Let's talk about master fee, and I'll pay half of that. And what the agreement that Joey just sort of put forward, he's more likely to get paid on a master if he splits the master with you versus if you give him some of the publishing on the back end, because you'll get downloads, you'll get any upfront fee from synchronization, licensing. So that's why I think that's one of the reasons why Joey says, okay, let's talk about taking a percentage of the master instead of taking a percentage of the publishers. No one should take a percentage of the writer's share unless they actually contributed to the melody or the lyrics, right?
Yeah, they wrote the song. That,
yeah.
Usually that's not the case, but sometimes people will do that because it's easier math. It's easy. You don't have to worry about it. They get their percentage of the pub and the writing, and when the song is sold, then that's the way it is.
Yeah, and ASCAP and BMI take care of that on the back end, so you actually don't even need to keep any records, versus the master, you do need to keep track of how much money you've made off the song and then pay out accordingly to who owns what percentage of that master. So I hope that it's super complicated. I've only recently wrapped my head around all this, but I hope it helps clear up where the money is coming from, that you would actually have something to negotiate from.
Right, so ideally, I should probably try to get the rights to the song on my own if I can afford that upfront. Like if I can manage to get him to just like sign a work for hire agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then that way I have all the rights myself, and then whatever profit I make, it goes to me. Is that right?
Regardless, though, when you do that deal, you can. I mean, I do a deal with my artists where they'll be owner of the master. It's just that they agree. So the money goes directly to you control it completely as an artist. And then you just agree that if you get a sync fee or you get a license fee, that you'll give me my percentage of that fee, but it's all administered through you. I think that's probably the best way, for you to feel safe about it. That way, say you submit it to a TV show, if he owns half of it, he actually could have the right to say, I don't want you to put it in that show. I mean, not that he would do that, but you want to have, full control over it. You just set it up so that they get basically a royalty that you administer to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's really good to get this stuff in front. Even I know you get that now, and it's sort of morphed. But even when Joey and I are working together, we're writing a song, and Joey's sitting there putting in the time producing it because he's a way better producer than I am. Like, we're like, all right, let's talk about this. Does it look like a master? Am I going to pay the full thing? Is this like, it's going to be a duet. So everything gets really complicated. You just got to sort of hash it out in conversation, like get it on a simple piece of paper in writing. Like there's no question later. I've done stuff. He's like, what about that master fee? And I'm like, we literally had a conversation. I'm like, wait, I'm giving you what? And I'm like, I need to write this down and, have good organized folders. And, Joey's one of my favorite co-writers, and we still have this all sort of, legalese talk, and we get it out of the way early on. Okay. The other thing is like, as the artist, like you're going to be going out there and promoting it. And even now I'm sort of getting into the co-writer. A lot of times producers end up working with you on the song's arrangement and end up changing a melody or something. And so they do get writer's credit, and you want to definitely make sure that that's something that you're open to. And if you're not, then you want to make sure that doesn't happen. You can be really clear on that if you're open to sharing the writer's credit, because they're contributing a lot of that. That's something that's happened for me. I thought I was going to go in with one song, and I came out with a different song that I loved. And I think, just having that conversation along the way, like, people aren't going to be weird about it. It only gets weird later when you suddenly get a sync license and you're talking about splits and you don't have nothing in writing. So it's always better. It feels awkward at first, but then it's for everyone's best interest. It's for the song's best interest. Everyone does these deals differently. You just have to be open communication about it. And as the artist, you're also the one that's going out and doing the promotion, and you're putting a lot of money in it that you're not necessarily, time and money that you're not necessarily like quantifying yet. So that's something that I always keep in mind too when I'm in these discussions. Like, okay, cool, yes, you produced the song, you did all this work, and it's worth this much to you. We put a dollar value on that, and it's my record that I'm going to be going and marketing and spending money on PR and doing all this stuff. Like, what's that worth? And then you have to have that conversation too. It's like, well, let me help you with the PR, and we can lower that rarely happens. Not a lot of producers I know are like, yeah, I want to market this. But yeah, that was a really great question, Megan. We could probably have like a whole podcast on just like fees and dealing with that structure. But I do want to get to, Lauren, yeah, you've got something?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to speak on that because, like, from the artist perspective, like, for my first album, I had to do something similar. And, like, I know it sounds, like, kind of stressful thinking about being in control of, like, making sure you pay everybody, like, on time. But what I did is I just broke it up into, like, the same quarterly payments that, like, BMI pays out their royalties. And I was just like, because sometimes, like, when I'm not touring, I'm not selling a bunch of albums, like, but when I'm on the road, like, obviously that's going to be a little bit more. So, Megan, like, coming up with a good, like, easy system that's, like, frequent enough to where you're not, like, scrambling when it's time to pay them to figure out how much you actually have to pay, but not, like, so close together where it's like, okay, here's a $17 check for the album sales, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's right. I mean, my agreements say on a quarterly basis. And I know some people it's just every 6 months, it doesn't have to be. It shouldn't have to be any more than on a quarterly basis. So it shouldn't feel super daunting as long as you keep decent records of your stuff. And now with TuneCore and all those, it's like easy to see how much your downloads are. And trust me, if you get a license in a show or whatever, you'll know how much the sync fee was. You're going to be signing a lot of contracts.
Yeah.
And I want to add too, for everybody, from being on both sides of it, personally, like the business thing I do all the time up front, like before I even start the work. But the thing is that you think it's going to be awkward, but most of the time the other person that you're working with is like thinking, oh, thank God you said something so that I know what I'm getting into, because I feel like almost every musician has been in a situation where you're like, okay, I'm doing this. It's awesome. Wait, you're saying you want this and you didn't have any idea or comes out of nowhere, and then you're like, I don't know what to do, and it sucks kind of thinking about hypotheticals before there's anything to be thought of.
Yeah.
But the funny part about it is as soon as money's in the mix, everybody gets nasty and people don't get along as well, and it's harder to make the negotiations you want to make from a place of like, hey, we're both equals and friends, and right now we're just trying to figure out in the future what's going to happen. And in a simple email, like a lot of times I'll say, so we talked about this today, just to memorialize, here's an email saying, you said you agree to this. If this is correct, just shoot me back I confirm, and that's enough to be like, to later on down the road, if somebody says, oh, I didn't know that, you can just be like, there's the email where we talked about it and you said you agreed. And it's hard to deny that. I don't know. You might have a little harder time in court, but not really,
Okay.
And hopefully that would avoid having to do anything like that,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good idea. I'll do that. I'll talk to him and then I'll send him an email.
Yeah.
Follow up on it.
That's great. Good. Awesome. Thanks, Megan.
All right, we're going to stop there for today. Stay tuned next week where we continue to talk to Joey and get even deeper in this production and music career conversation. Please don't forget to rate and comment on iTunes and Stitcher Radio if you like this podcast. It's the best way to keep it going, get more subscribers, and continue to share this awesome information with the indie music community. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. All of the music on this podcast has been created by yours truly. The theme song is called Inevitably, written with Cameron Ernst and produced by Joey Auch. You can find all the songs, plus more information on my music career at CherylBE.com. If you want to be one of the reasons I can keep this podcast and my blog Living on Gigging going, then head to patreon.com/CBEmusic. There, you can contribute $1, $2, $5 for the creation of each of these free musician resources. Together, we can keep them coming and inspire other creative people to do what they love and do it well. Again, that's patreon.com/CBEmusic. Key Conversations is sponsored in part by Bandzoogle. They make it easy to build a beautiful website for your music. Their step-by-step system gets you online in minutes, and you can choose from hundreds of mobile-friendly themes and customize them with their easy point-and-click editor. All the features you could possibly imagine for a professional website are built in. So, because you are a Key Conversations podcast listener, you get a special 3-month free trial just for you. Go to www.inthekeyofsuccess.com/resources and click on the Bandzoogle logo to access your free extended trial.